Wood, John Landry, Peter McAllister, Terry O'Neill, Mickey Fox, John Gallino, Peter Halpin, Fred Perry, Greg Redding, Bob Toboski, and Brian Heaney, please come up. Results were the preseason prediction, but Heaney had expectations of a different sort. He had recruited well, and SMU fans were delighted to see 7 excellent first-year additions to the roster. Brian's wife, Leanna, once told a television reporter that every girl had a view of her Prince Charming, and she had been fortunate enough to marry hers. Well, even Prince Charming couldn't foresee the year SMU would have, nor did his plans include his being named CIAU Coach of the Year at the end of the season. Aware of his youth and wishing to establish his authority quickly, Heaney established some unusual restrictions. The team were never to hang around a shopping center, they were never to hang around a movie theater, and never hang around bars or, of course, drink alcohol. As big guy Peter Halpin recently put it, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. His push to win sometimes came in conflict with his realization that he had to enforce his rules or team discipline would break down. Heaney received a disturbing report that some of his players had been drinking at a beer bash in a SMU gym one night. He jumped into immediate action, suspending Gallino and Halpin for a game. And as he put it, high scorer Mickey Fox was placed under investigation. The investigation, according to his teammates, is still ongoing. SMU began the season beating ex-UPI and Mount A before sustaining their first loss to defending Atlantic champions Acadia. Their pre-Christmas record was 7-1. The most exciting of these pre-Christmas games took place over at the tiny old dilapidated gym at UPEI. Some of you will remember that the place only held a couple hundred fans, some of whom sat right on the sidelines, which could intimidate some players. Easygoing John Gallino was not among those cowed by the environment, and close to halftime he got into it with one of the Spud Islanders. Heaney immediately took him out of the game till halftime. In the locker room, Heaney quieted the team, turned to Gallino. He said, "I know you, John. I know you're going to try and get even with that guy, but don't seek revenge during this game." Of course, those of us who know how mild-mannered and dispassionate John Gallino is know the rest of the story. The ball was tossed for the second half tap. All the eyes followed the ball, all the eyes except John's, because right at that instant he sucker punched his adversary, and the brouhaha started all over again. Back in the locker room, the only guy showing blood was Taps Gallagher, who had a bloody nose. Totally unsubstantiated rumor had it that Otha Johnson had whacked him during the melee to get even for an elbow in practice. They lost at the Loyola University Centennial Christmas Tournament, but second-year player Mickey Fox made the all-tournament team, and freshman Lee Thomas was named the MVP. If locals ever wanted to know how the team was doing, they could find all their clippings taped to the wall at Diana Suites, where SMU took their team meals. The best regular season games were against Acadia, never dull. They became even more emotional after Fred Perry inadvertently ran axeman Paul Talbot into the stands at SMU. Next time down the valley, SMU players found themselves hanged in effigy, and their names with sarcastic eulogies on cardboard tombstones spread throughout the Acadia gym. This was an exciting era in the Maritimes. The unheralded SMU players were starting to make a name for themselves. Nova Scotians were starting to know them. Their backgrounds are perhaps best discovered through the following early photos of each. Brian Burgess, Art Waters, Otha Johnson, Lee Thomas, Greg Redding, Mickey Fox, Don Gallagher. Bob Toboski came from a tough neighborhood. John Gallino. Peter Halpin. And the ever-reverend Fred Perry. During the 1972-73 season, many of them set records and earned individual honors. Fox made second team All-Canadian. Thomas was named to the first team. Looking back at one of their big budget trips to the States where they played 4 games in 3 days and slept 4 to 5 to a room, someone pointed out that it was probably the first time 2 All-Canadians ever slept in the same bed. Gallinow, Fox, and Thomas were named all-tournament team members in the CIAU National Championships. Many individual records were set, but each of the recipients agree that all wins were team wins and the wins were far more important than the individual awards. The value of importing players is a strongly debated practice about whether importing players to play for maritime teams is beneficial for the area. Some detractors say that local players don't get the experience they might have had if their place on the ice or on the court or on the field is taken by an import. Arguments in favor say the locals who do play with and against the imports have a much richer experience. Another argument in favor of the practice is that many of the imports stay here and enrich the Maritimes with their participation as coaches, clinicians, organizers, and boosters. The 73 Smooth team adds great strength to the latter argument, as both the imports and the local team members have contributed greatly to provincial sport. The imports who stayed and spent the bulk of their adult life here in Nova Scotia can only be discerned by us real Nova Scotians, because they still talk funny. Fox, once coach of the Windjammers and assistant coach at SMU, now coaches in the Halifax Minor Basketball Association. Gallinow, Halpin, and Fox are on the CIAU Basketball Executive Committee. Gallinow has been president of the Mainland South Basketball Association. Halpin has been president of the Halifax Minor Basketball Association. Fred Perry's now head coach of the Cole Harbour basketball team. Greg Redding and Bob Toboski still play in the Intermediate League, and Redding coaches girls bantam basketball at the Canadian Martyrs. Manager Terry O'Neill plays in the local intermediate league and has risen to the national level in lawn bowling. Manager Peter McAllister refs high school ball, and head manager John Landry has continued to manage and been a key part of the Smooth basketball tradition for more than 25 years. So much for individual accomplishment. Let's get back to the 72-73 St. Mary's team. The Huskies finished the second half of the season in lackluster fashion, losing to Dal and Acadia. They turned around the Atlantic University playoffs and beat Dal 84-54 to face Acadia in Wolfville for the Atlantic University Championship. They won a thriller, 64-59. Though they were to meet with even greater success, the fondest memory for many of them was the party after the Atlantic Province's championship game. The bus driver, who by then considered himself part of the team despite the fact that he kept calling the coach Brian Heaney, parked his bus on the lawn in front of Fox and Gallinaw's Tower Road apartment. By morning, all of the team members were convinced that they'd been wrong and corrected themselves whenever they addressed Coach Heaney for the remainder of the postseason. CBC is still mispronouncing it when they introduce him as a color commentator for televised CIAU basketball games. Smooth then went to Waterloo to play in the national finals. The 5,000 Upper Canadian fans and local commentators gave the freshman-laden Halifax squad no chance. Smooth had a season record of 22 wins and 8 losses, but the Ontario press never noticed that they'd only suffered 3 of those losses to Canadian schools, and that they had bounced back and beaten those schools in later games. To begin with, the other 3 contenders, Lakehead, Windsor, and Concordia, had a number of fifth-year players because of rules which permitted 5 years of eligibility everywhere else in Canada except in the Atlantic provinces. To make sure St. Mary's didn't make it to the finals, they scheduled them against the overwhelming favorites, the University of Windsor. They almost got their wish as the game was tied at the end of regulation time. Cream rose. The Huskies dominated the overtime period, winning 91-84. Mickey Fox, who tried passing the ball once in grade 8, discovered he didn't like doing it. Scored an impressive high 32 points. Don't hit me in the stomach. It was John Gallinow who had the game of his life, impressing even the Upper Canadian fans by his great playmaking, coupled with the fact that he scored on every one of his 7 field goal attempts and also shot a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. Smooth went on then to face Lakehead to see who could claim to be the best basketball team in the country. They started slow once again. They were down at halftime, but stormed back to win 79-67, due in large part to a 20-point performance by Lee Thomas, who also snared a tournament record 18 rebounds to add to the 13 he had grabbed in the semis. Mickey Fox, who many still say is the best shooter to ever play in the Maritimes, shot the lights out, taking the scoring title with an amazing 39 points. This was the first CIAU national championship in Smooth's long involvement in university athletics. They hooted, they shouted, they tipped a few that night, but the real celebration happened at home. The next morning when they deplaned and made their way to the baggage area, they couldn't believe their eyes because the room was absolutely full of Smooth supporters who had organized and formed a motorcade to chauffeur their heroes back to the university. When they disembarked on campus, they were ushered into the residence dining room, which was wall-to-wall and partway up to the ceiling with the whole of the Smooth community. St. Mary's University at this time had fewer than 2,500 students. It was the kind of place where everybody knew everybody. All of them in the extended community, including avid fans, alumni, faculty, administration, and staff, were there. When President Kerrigan officially congratulated them, there was not a dry eye in the house. None of the players could speak. They were so overcome with the raw emotion of it all. Suffice it to say that times have never been better on the South End campus. The team could look back at a season which rewrote the record books. Collectively, they could boast single-game records for the most individual points in a game. Fox's 46 against UNB. The most rebounds in a game, Thomas's 32 versus Loyola. The most assists, Gallinaw's 11 against Fairfield. Atlantic University records, the best team field goal percentage, 48.5. High scorer, Fox's 20.5 points per game. The best field goal percentage, Gallinaw's 60.5%. And the best rebound average, Thomas's 14.5. Fox, Gallinaw, and Thomas each had established CIAU tournament records, and each were individually honored at the Smooth Athletic Banquet, where Gallinaw was named Team MVP, Thomas was named Rookie of the Year, and Fox was named University Athlete of the Year. These were commendable individual achievements, but paled when compared to the team's success. Every team has stars, but every team member contributed to this championship. The 1973 CIAU National Champions, ladies and gentlemen, the team which started the era of Nova Scotian dominance in Canadian basketball, was and is Brian Heaney, John Landry, Terry O'Neill, Peter McAllister, Brian Burgess, Art Waters, Otha Johnson, Fred Perry, Greg Redding, Mickey Fox, Don Gallagher, John Gallinaw, Peter Halpin, Bob Tabosky, and Lee Thomas.
At this time, I would ask Mr. Bob Shaw, Vice President Marketing, Sheridan Casinos, to please join us for the presentation to the Huskies 73. While we're waiting to talk to at least a couple of the new Hall of Famers, there's a few messages here I'd like to share with you. To Mr. Fred Perry, congratulations and best wishes in your night in the St. Mary's basketball team. I would also like to extend congratulations and best wishes to Lois McGregor, Wilson Parsons, the late Billy Carter and the Carter family, and to all others honored here tonight, sincerely, Bob Burchill. And a message directed to Mr. Fred Perry, Sr. Dad, I'm sorry I could not be there to share this moment with you, but fortunately we have our opening tournament this weekend, and as it's been demonstrated in your driving, you're getting old, and it's time for someone else to take over. Congratulations, Dad. I'm proud of you as a father, as well as a role model, and I want you to know I'm there with you in heart. Congrats again. I love you, Pops. See you tomorrow. Fred Jr. All right. Now, this is a very special night for all of these great athletes who were inducted here tonight for their tremendous accomplishment in 1973. And for some of them, it's an even more special night because they're sharing it. They're getting to share it with their parents. As you know, we have had a number of great American kids who have come to Halifax, who have come to Nova Scotia, and have contributed so tremendously to the athletic programs here, and particularly in the area of basketball. And I'm delighted to know that tonight, many years later, so many years later, 25 years, some of the parents are probably here for perhaps the first time to share in the accomplishments of their sons, who have all remained as permanent residents of this area, continue to make great contributions, both athletically and socially, economically, because they're all successful businessmen. And so here tonight, we'd like to extend a very special welcome to, and they please, would you please stand and be recognized, Chet and Flo Fox of New York.
All right.
Irene Galina of New York. Fred's mom, Dorothy Perry of New Jersey. And from a little closer to home, Gwen and Mort Redding of Lockport. So you see, folks, the kid's done good. I'd like to move it here. Why am I having so much trouble with this? Batteries perhaps are gone? I don't know. What do we see? Can you hear? All right, let's bring on the heroes. First of all, let's talk to the captain of the great St. Mary's Huskies 1973, John Galina. Congratulations, John.
Thank you, Pat.
I have to wonder what the duties of a captain were on that team besides getting the coach motivated and excited about the game.
I was responsible for study hall, and I was to make sure that nobody drank.
I see. And, of course, they followed your instructions to the letter. It was your personal leadership, your inspirational leadership that did it. You
lead by example. That's what we did.
Some people will say this is a long time coming, John. The proper recognition of this great team. I'm reminded of an elderly lady a couple of years ago that I came up on the stage and I said, congratulations on your election. And she said, it's about time. And perhaps it's about time for this team.
Actually, I think the timing's pretty good because most of us have kids that are of the age now where they can really appreciate it and really understand it. Plus, it lends a lot of credibility to all the stories I've been telling them.
You think they believe?
Well, they have to believe. I'll show them the plaque.
John, what about one highlight from that season? One game, one play?
Well, it'd have to be the Windsor game. Hitting the shot at the buzzer.
Okay. That's the defining moment for you. Of course, it'd have to, for everybody.
Well, I mean, it changed the whole course of things. That's right. Yeah, and then we went on in overtime. We just totally dominated, and that opened the way for us for the finals, and we came out successful.
Nice to see all these guys again.
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
You've had a little socializing the last couple of days, maybe?
Well, we socialized quite a bit, so.
Well, I'll tell you, it's Friday night, John, so feel free. Cut loose.
Well, Coach still has us on curfew.
Coach still has you on curfew? Let's bring him on. The coach. Come on in, Brian. Yeah, he says the coach has us on curfew. You never had a curfew.
Well, they had curfews. I may not have had a curfew, but I have to tell, these guys are too humble. John Galina talked about hitting a shot as his outstanding moment, and one of the key things about this team is throughout the season, each and every player had a role to play and played it well. And we had a timeout in the semifinal game in the national tournament. We were losing by 6 points. Fred Perry and Mickey Fox made 2 jump shots. We were down 2. There were 9 seconds on the clock, and I called a timeout. I had a pretty good play designed, I thought. The players listened. They were ready to go out and run it. And the referee blew the whistle. The team ran out on the court, and I turned around to sit down. The manager sat down. The team sat down. And I had a second thought. And John was about where that podium was. And I knew how mentally tough this guy was. And that was the hallmark of this team, and he was the captain of this team. And I called him back, and I said, if you don't like what you see, take it yourself. And I went and sat down, and John got the ball in bounds. He went right to the top of the key, skirted by his man, hit the jump shot, made 5 for 5, 7 for 7 that game. And that game obviously tied the ball game as the buzzer went, and we went into overtime. But he's too humble. It takes a great, great athlete to be able to perform under that kind of pressure in that situation. And he's one of the reasons, as each of the other 11 players, why we won.
As he demonstrated so often before and after.
Well, that's right. You know, the three hallmarks, Pat, of this team are incredible ability to work hard. Their work ethic, I would put up against any of the great teams in Nova Scotia history. Our practice sessions were absolutely vicious. I mean, they worked harder than sometimes you thought humanly possible. I mean, I was 25 years old when we started the season, a little loopy, and I pushed them as hard as I could possibly push them, and they responded to the challenge in the practice session, and that positioned them throughout the season on the road when we played other great teams to respond to any challenge that came their way. And it was a time in Nova Scotia basketball history when the fans were rabid at the respective gymnasiums. You go to St. FX, you go to Acadia, you go to Dalhousie. I mean, there was a lot of passion in the gym an hour before the game started. And for them to be able to perform in that situation and carry forward a brash reputation and then deliver the goods was Ali-like. I mean, they had that mental toughness, that reserve to be able to do that. And then the third outstanding quality was unbelievable mental toughness to be able to perform in any pressure cooker that they ever went into.
Brian, just on a more personal note, getting a little commercial break here. You're getting closer to home, I understand. You've made new affiliations going to bring you around to it a little more. Well,
that's right. I recently joined, of course, Maritime Life, and it's unbelievable. You know, the world goes round in circles, and for us, Nova Scotia has always been home. Of course, Leanna was born and raised here. Our children were born here. And two of our daughters attended university here, Jen at Acadia, and Pam more recently got her MBA at St. Mary's. And when I had an opportunity to consider a career change, I talked to a headhunter in Toronto, and the phone call rang, and I said, you know, I don't think I'm really interested. I said, by the way, what company is this? And she said, Maritime Life. I said, I always have time to come in and talk about the Maritimes. I said, book me for next week, and I was thrilled at that opportunity. And 2 or 3 months later, it came to pass, and I certainly am very proud to be more closely connected to Nova Scotia and to a great company like Maritime Life. And a lot of my partners and colleagues are here tonight, and we certainly appreciate that. And on behalf of our team, we appreciate all the corporate support that comes forward on behalf of amateur sport.
Thank you, Coach. Welcome back. Mickey Fox, come here, Mickey. I want you to turn around and show your folks what Mickey looks like in a shirt and tie. That's the way you sent him to Halifax, with a shirt and tie all those years ago, and folks, he saved it. He's put it back on tonight because you're here. Hey, listen, you know, you've never ceased to be a celebrity.
No questions unless Bruce asks them. I got it.
Yeah, your buddy Bruce from the bullpen, and Gordy Sutherland. Do we have to pay you for interviews now, or do you pay for your talents? Mick, what a career you had with the Huskies. This, you know, you played on great teams before and after. What about this team? What made it special?
Well, I think what Bill Riley said earlier was that it was a great team. You know, no real individual stars. I know that I got a lot of credit, but when you think of people like John Gallinar and Lee Thomas, who were just super players who willed the team to win, I said earlier, it was an easy job for me. I had to catch the ball and shoot it. They did the rest of the work. But
was it really that easy, the way you made it look?
It was, with those guys playing as hard as it was pretty easy. But, you know, I think Brian mentioned it earlier. He pushed us and sort of developed us. We're different characters, not rejects, but retreads maybe from the States. And I think the only kid that was really recruited was Greg Redding, who was highly recruited, and the rest of us were sort of on our second runs around, and we were just thankful to be here. But it was a great team. It was a great time to be a part of basketball in Nova Scotia. And I think what it made it so unique was the fans, and really to the people out there today, to the many people that I see on the streets, and that they opened their hearts and their homes to us and accepted us greatly. And one of the things I think that if you talk to anybody up on the stage, they would say the people in Nova Scotia have been just fantastic, and basketball in those years was just great. And just to be a part of the Nova Scotia Sports Hall of Fame is a fabulous, fabulous honor.
Well, you know, Halifax likes to call itself at times the basketball capital of Canada. This team and others and all you guys have made such a contribution to that claim, make that claim legitimate.
Well, I think we really truly believe in basketball, believe in commitment to the youth.